And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Hello, everyone. Meteorologist Grant Smith here with the National Weather Service from Juneau, Alaska, filling in for the Alaska Weather Desk to give you a quick look at the marine forecast for the next few days here in Alaska. So looking ahead to what the headlines, kind of what we're looking at, main weather concerns are going to be centered around the Gulf of Alaska, where through early next week, two at least gale force lows are going to track from west to east through the Gulf. So strongest winds are going to be on the south side of the low and along the front that will extend ahead of both of these lows. And as far as the West Alaska, the Bering Sea, we'll see some elevated winds as a weak low pressure will move from north to south, but much weaker, upwards of winds of 20 to 25 knots, while elsewhere looking at much stronger winds, upwards of gales at times. So starting with the southeast, Sunday's marine forecast, one low pressure will have moved out. And so winds are going to be decreasing and seas are going to be decreasing, but then going into Monday, the next low moves in. So wind speeds will increase to upwards of 25 to 30 knots. Could see some gales along the far southern border. And the seas are also going to increase to near 20 feet by Monday afternoon. For south central Alaska, looking at the marine forecast there, one low pressure will be moving out of the area. So wind speeds at around 20 to 30 knots with seas at around 6 to 7 feet. But then going into Monday, the next low pressure tracks into the Gulf, so increasing winds and increase those sea heights to about 30 knots of wind and seas at about 10 to, say, 12 feet. For the Alaska Peninsula and the Kodiak Islands, one low pressure will be tracking through. So you can see that flow coming from north to south, 30 knots there just to the south of Cold Bay, with seas upwards of 12 feet. But then going into Monday, because that low pressure will move on, and we're waiting for the next one to move in, a little bit lower seas, but still seeing some winds around 20 to 30 knots for the Alaska Peninsula and the Kodiak Island area. For the Aleutian chain, one low pressure moves out, another low pressure moves in. So there's going to be a little bit of a lull in between the two lows, but as the lows track through, wind speeds as high as 30 to 40 knots on Sunday. And then Monday, as that next low tracks through, you see that flow coming from north to south, seas upwards of 20 to 25 feet, and wind speeds upwards of 30 to 35 knots. So very strong winds around those lows. For the west coast, that little low pressure that's going to track from north to south could bring some elevated winds and elevated seas. But once that tracks through Monday, looking a little bit calmer, seas at about 3 to 4 feet, with wind speeds about 10 to 15 knots, a little bit stronger wind speeds the closer to the Aleutian Islands you get. Farther north you are, well, that one low pressure will track through, so we are going to see some elevated winds just along the west coast, but the northern areas, looking at wind speeds around 10 knots with seas at about 3 to 4 feet. Going into Monday, much calmer because that low will have moved on, and we'll be in a lull in the wind. So about 10 to 15 knots with seas at about 2 to 3 feet. And the Friday's ice edge still farther to the north, but it is tracking to the south going forward as temperatures begin to really cool down heading into winter. That's a quick look at your marine weather forecasts. For more forecast details, you can head on over to weather.gov/Alaska.